I'd like to go
Perfect,
back
sweet.
to the early days and talk a little bit about, and Matthew, I'll kick it off with you. Since I think a lot of people kind of know your story, you can tell a little bit of your story, how you got into it as well, if you want to. But I'd love to know, like, how describe the early days for you in property management. Because I'm imagining a lot of people on the webinar right now are listening to this. Um, Maybe they're in the early stages, or maybe they're like they haven't scaled a property management company, but they want to go there. But what was it like for you early on in those 2008?
So yeah, thanks for that lead in. I got into the business during the Great Recession and owned about 30 homes that I couldn't sell. And so I was moved residents in them and started. Spencer was my first client and took on about 25 or 30 houses that he owned. And one of the things that I found, and I did this for probably 5 years, until you get to about 300 homes, it's kind of ironic that Mike has it above his head. It's really about hustle, right? It's about, doing all the things that you need to do to get everything done. And, whether it's showing a house, posting rents, like I did everything. And as you're growing a business and as you get to about, 200, 300 doors, you're out there hustling and grinding. And, as you and I talk about it a lot on the podcast, but as you move past that, then it becomes more about instead of property management, it's people management. But from 0 to 300, to me, it's about two things. It's about hustle and it's about great communication, right? Like being able to anticipate what your clients are going to say, being proactive and making sure your clients are consistently in the loop. That's how I kind of think about the early days and how we got started here.
What was going back to the early days, Duke? Let me ask you this. What were your biggest struggles? Because you mentioned, like, hey, it's an extremely hard business. What were your biggest struggles in the early days?
I think starting off, especially when you're inexperienced, you don't have a lot to offer a client based on someone, in comparison to somebody who's very experienced and has a lot of built-in systems and track record and all that. So what you end up getting is like some of the worst owners and some of the worst properties that require a lot of your time, owners that you don't quite know yet, like where you have to draw the line with a client as far as what they demand of you. Like you'll have a client say, I need you to go, I'm out of town and I need the power on at this property. I need you to go sit at my property from 8 a.m. until noon, right? People would tell you that, and okay, that's what I have to do. I guess I'm a property manager. And so I think you're pulled in so many directions. It's a very labor intensive business and industry. And so early on, A, where do you draw the line with clients? B, what systems can you create so you don't have to do everything? At first as a small business owner, like you kind of drink your own Kool-Aid and you think you're so awesome that no one else can do it like you can do it. And in reality, I think you have to challenge yourself to figure out why you're good at a particular task, how you can replicate that task with someone else doing it or a software doing it or some automate it in some fashion, and taking the time because you're busy spinning so many plates. You have to take the time to stop and build a system that will replicate that experience over and over again and free your time up. But I mean, it's a you have to work all the time around the clock to get a business off the ground and grow it, and that can never be replaced. Just hard work, but working hard and instead of working smart, not just working hard, I think is pretty important early on.
Is there a point where you like a growth, maybe a certain number, I don't know, where you get to where you can finally say, hey, I don't need these clients anymore. These clients that are eating up all my time, because I think every property manager has that in their business. They have these clients that they maybe got started with. Was there a time when you look back and you're like, hey, I'm going to start cutting some of these relationships off and just deal with the clients that I love?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't as good at that as others, but I remember going to property management conferences and RPM conferences early on and having somebody like Robert Locke in Atlanta to tell you exactly that. At the end of each year, he would let his employees pick like the 3% or the 5% worst clients, and they would fire them in January. And how much, like the bad ones really do take up a lot of your time. They really do. And you dread the canceling of the contract, you dread the conversation where you finally cancel and they're gone. It's like your life's better, and then you have more time for the good clients, right? The ones that you should be giving your time to.